CodeOcean pipelines are a way to connect, automate, parallelize, and scale your computational work. You can either build them with the visual pipeline editor while it auto-generates Nextflow code for you, import pre-existing pipelines from a Git repo or from NF Core, or you can write your own pipelines from scratch. In this video, we're going to explore how pipelines work in a few different ways. We'll look at developing our own pipeline with the visual editor. We will import a pipeline directly from NF Core. And lastly, we will look at what it's like to develop our own pipeline by writing Nextflow directly. So in this example pipeline here, we're going to start by dragging some capsules onto our visual pipeline editor. And to make my life a little easier, I'm going to use some pre-built CodeOcean apps capsule. So I'm going to search for my first capsule. It's going to be FastQC. And I'm going to select the version that I want to use. Let's choose the latest version, 5.0. Next up, I'm going to look for a multi-QC capsule. There it is. We'll reorder this a little bit. As I dragged these capsules onto my builder, we can actually look at the main.nf script that is generated for us. And as we can see here, each process in this script represents one capsule on our editor, and all of this Nextflow code has been written for me. So next up, we're going to want to add some data to our pipeline. So I'm going to go to Manage Data, and I'm going to search for my paired and read. We're going to drag our data from the data folder onto the UI. And now we want to establish the flow of data into the first capsule. And you'll see as we did that, a channel was created here in the Nextflow code for me as well. We will add connections to establish the flow of data that we want through the pipeline. So from FastQC into multi-QC, and then the output of multi-QC into our results bucket. We can also configure connection types to control the parallelization and the flow of data. So by changing this connection here from default to collect, the entire output of the FastQC will be made available to each instance of the destination capsule multi-QC. And finally, we can also define different compute resources for each capsule and process of the pipeline. And this is going to automatically run on AWS Batch straight out of the box with no additional configuration needed. I'm also going to ensure that the output that goes into results is going to go into a folder that we're going to let's call this sample QC. All right. And lastly, I'll quickly go over the pipeline settings. So here we can choose instance types, whether we want to run on demand or run using spot instances. We can also select different AWS IAM roles if needed, as well as specify different error strategies for this particular pipeline. Next up, I will create a CodeOcean app panel, which generates a no-code user interface that exposes parameters to the users to configure their pipeline run. So I'm going to click Create App. Now, these parameters are predefined in the CodeOcean apps capsules. So in this particular example, we can select the number of threads for the FastQC, and we can also specify the name of the output file from the multi-QC. So if we are happy with what we've developed, we can go ahead and create a release version so others can use this pipeline reproducibly using their own parameters. Next up, we're going to look at importing pipelines. So if we click the plus sign here, we see we have the option to import from a Git repo. And by the way, we support full integration with GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, as well as Azure DevOps. We also have the option to import directly from NF Core. Now, this option also imports from the NF Core GitHub repository. So let's take a look at this example here. We have a list of all of the pipelines currently available to us from NF Core, and I'm just going to select RNA-seq. We can also choose the exact version of the NF Core RNA-seq pipeline. It's going to go with the latest, and now we're going to click Import. This will just take a few seconds. What's happening right now is that we are pulling in all of the files from the NF Core GitHub repository, and we are putting it into an organized CodeOcean pipeline. And there we go. Just like that, we have a new pipeline, RNA-seq version 3.14.0. We have the README file as came to us directly from NF Core. It gives us information about all of the processes of this pipeline, the usage of this pipeline, how to set up your sample sheet, what the pipeline output files should look like, some online tutorials, as well as the credits, contribution support, and citations for this particular pipeline. The app panel that we see here on the left-hand side, very similar to the one I showed you, except these pipelines have many parameters. So very easy for the users to parameterize their runs exactly as they want. I'll also quickly go over the files of this pipeline. So everything that you see here in the pipeline folder, this came to us directly from the NF Core RNA-seq GitHub repository. All right, now lastly, I want to show an example of a pipeline that was developed by writing Nextflow directly in CodeOcean. I've got this example here in another tab. This is a simple pipeline that runs FastQC, multi-QC, and then alignment using BWA. So very similar to the imported NF Core pipeline, the pipeline UI is unavailable for these custom pipelines. This does give the Nextflow power users the flexibility of writing Nextflow that they're used to doing. So in conclusion, pipelines are really flexible. We can either create multi-step bioinformatics pipelines, we can import ready-made pipelines, either from GitHub, NF Core, otherwise. We can connect our pipeline to the CodeOcean API to run it automatically. And we can also just set them up with a single capsule to take advantage of parallel computing in AWS. If you have any questions about how pipelines work, please make sure to take a look at our documentation or book a demo with us to get into more detail.